Betty sits on that same front porch, the one we've all seen 100 times in pictures and videos. The place where the Whittaker family laughed, fought, smoked, and simply existed. But this time, she's alone. The house is too quiet, too still. The dogs still bark when a car drives by, but no one comes down that dirt road anymore. The sound of laughter is gone. The rocking chair creaks with every slow movement, and beside her, where Lorraine used to sit, there's only an empty space. That's where the letter begins. Dear family, dear world, I don't know who's reading this or who's listening, but I need to say it while I still can. My family is gone, and it feels like the world just stood back and watched it happen. Betty's handwriting is shaky, the words uneven, but the message is clear. She's writing to everyone. The county, the fans, the strangers who once sent money, and maybe even God. She talks about the silence. How the porch that used to feel full of life now feels like a grave. How she wakes up expecting to hear Ray calling from his room or Timmy laughing at his coloring books. How she can still hear Lorraine humming in the kitchen, even though she knows she's gone. You don't know how hard it is to wake up every day and remember they ain't here. The house still smells like them. Their shoes are still by the door. Sometimes I sit their plates out like they're coming back. She says she doesn't know where they are. She's been told they're safe, but she doesn't believe it. Safe, she says, doesn't mean happy. Safe doesn't mean home. The letter that broke the internet. When this letter first surfaced, it wasn't clear who released it. Some said it came from a friend of the family. Others claimed Patrick found it folded inside a Bible and sent it to a local reporter. What mattered wasn't how it got out. It was what it said. Because Betty's words weren't angry. They were exhausted. You can take my house. You can take my money, if I ever had any. But don't take my people. Don't take the ones I love and tell me it's for their own good. She wrote about how the cameras came and went, how people used her family's story for clicks, sympathy, and profit. She said the cameras were supposed to help, to tell the truth, as they promised. But in the end, they took her piece instead. When they first came, I thought we was special. Now I know we was just a story. When the story ended, they left. But we still hear broken. The line that caught everyone's attention was simple, haunting. They made us famous, but they forgot to make us okay. A woman left behind. People who know Betty describe her as tough, strong-willed, mouthy, unfiltered. But in the letter, her voice is soft, reflective. There's no fight left in it, just longing. She admits she's not perfect, that she's made mistakes, that she yelled when she shouldn't have, said things she didn't mean, maybe even pushed people away when she needed them most. I ain't no saint, she wrote, but I did the best I could with what I had. You try raising 3 grown children who don't understand the world. You try feeding mouths when the government check don't stretch far enough. You try loving people when the whole world calls you ugly, dirty, and dumb. Those words hit people hard, especially fans who had followed the family for years. The comment sections lit up. Some said the letter was proof that Betty had been misunderstood. Others said it was manipulation, another attempt to control the narrative. But whether you believed her or not, there was no denying the pain in those lines. Messages to her children. The letter turns deeply personal halfway through. She starts addressing each of her siblings, one by one. To Lorraine, you was my baby girl, even if you wasn't my baby. I still remember when you used to hide your chips and laugh when I found them. You got a good heart, Rainey. Don't let nobody tell you different. If you're mad at me, I understand. But don't forget, I loved you the best way I knew how. To Ray, you was always quiet, always kind. You never asked for much, just a can of snuff and a good day. I hope you got someone to talk to now. I hope they treat you like a man and not like a burden. To Timmy, you always said you wanted to go to the store by yourself. You was brave, braver than people think. Keep coloring, baby. Keep writing your name. You got more in you than this world ever gave you credit for. The way she writes, You can feel the love between every word, a mother's love in the body of a sister. But there's something else too, guilt. She keeps circling back to the same line. I should have done more. No one reading it could tell what exactly she meant. More care, more protection, more distance from outsiders. But it's clear she blames herself for what happened. Fans react. Within hours of the letter being posted, the internet was divided again. Some called it Betty's redemption. Others said it was damage control. One comment summed up the mood perfectly. You can hear her pain in every word. But pain doesn't erase the past. Another said, whatever Betty did or didn't do, she deserves to see her family again. Enough is enough. But the line that kept appearing in every thread was, this sounds like a woman who's lost everything, and nobody's listening. Patrick speaks out. Patrick, who had kept relatively quiet since the controversy around donations, spoke about the letter in a short video. Yeah, Betty wrote that, or at least most of it. She told me what she wanted to say, and I helped her write it down. She misses them bad. I know people got their opinions, but she ain't lying about that part. He said Betty wanted the letter to reach everyone who ever cared about the family, to remind them that behind the documentaries and drama, real people were still hurting. She told me, I just want somebody to remember us without all the mess. A cry for help. By the end of the letter, Betty's tone changes. It's not just grief anymore, it's desperation. If they can read this, if anyone can tell them I love them. Tell them I ain't mad. Tell them I'm sorry. I just want my family back before I die. It's not clear if Betty knew anyone from the county or the state would ever read her letter, but she clearly hoped it might reach them, even if just through the noise of the internet. The final lines. The closing paragraph is simple, but it lingers. This porch don't feel right without y'all. The air's too still. The sun don't shine the same. I still leave the light on, just in case you come home. When Patrick read those words out loud in a follow-up video, even he broke down. For a few seconds, you could hear nothing but him trying to breathe through the tears. What do you think when you hear those words? Do you believe Betty's letter came from the heart or from regret? Comment below with how it makes you feel. When Betty's letter hit the internet, it didn't just spread, it exploded. Within hours, screenshots were being shared on Facebook groups, Reddit threads, TikTok reactions, and YouTube comment sections. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone had a theory. The letter wasn't just seen as a cry from a grieving woman. It became a turning point in the ongoing debate about the Whittaker family. Shockwaves through social media. People who once turned away from the story suddenly came back. Longtime followers who had stopped commenting after the fraud allegations resurfaced in force, this time not to argue, but to mourn. One viral post read, "You can feel her pain through every word. I don't care what you think of her. This is a mother begging for her children back." But not everyone saw it that way. Critics began picking apart the letter line by line, questioning the authenticity of Betty's handwriting, the phrasing, even the emotional tone. Betty never talked like this, one person wrote. Someone helped her write that. It sounds too polished. Still, others defended her fiercely. Who cares if someone helped her? She still meant it. You can't fake that kind of hurt. The letter did what the countless documentaries, live streams, and interviews hadn't. It humanized Betty again. For the first time in months, people weren't talking about her as a villain or a case file. They were talking about her as a woman, a mother, a sister, a person. Patrick responds again. Patrick uploaded a video the next morning, visibly tired but composed. He sat outside on the same porch Betty described in her letter, holding a printed copy of it in his hand. "People think this was made up," he said softly. "It's not." Betty said every word that's written here. "Yeah, I helped her with spelling. But the feelings, that's all her. She's been crying herself to sleep every night since they took him. You can say what you want about her, but she loves her family." He paused for a long time before continuing. Y'all keep asking if she did something wrong. I don't know. Maybe she yelled. Maybe she got mad. But she ain't evil. She ain't what people make her out to be. She's just tired. She wants to see her people. That video alone got over 200,000 views in 24 hours. The comments poured in, some supportive, some angry, some skeptical. But one thing was certain. People were listening again. The fans take action. After the letter spread, fans began organizing. One woman in Kentucky started an online petition titled "Bring the Whittakers Home." Within 2 days, it had nearly 10,000 signatures. The petition demanded transparency from the county handling the case. They wanted to know why Betty had been separated from her family for so long, and what the long-term plan was for Ray, Lorraine, and Timmy. Another Facebook group, Justice for the Whittakers, started collecting letters of support from fans all over the country. Some wrote heartfelt notes addressed directly to Betty. "You are not alone. We believe you deserve another chance. Family belongs together, no matter how broken. I'm praying for you, Miss Betty. You're stronger than you think." Others shared their own stories, tales of losing loved ones to the system or being judged for living in poverty. For the first time, Betty's story wasn't just her story. It became a mirror for many others who felt forgotten and misunderstood. A ripple effect of empathy. The letter also caught the attention of advocates for adults with disabilities. Several nonprofit organizations released statements calling for compassion in how families like the Whittakers are treated. One post from a West Virginia social worker read, "We need to remember that poverty and neglect are not the same thing. Sometimes people need help, not punishment." Betty's letter reminds us that love exists even in broken homes. This sparked a broader conversation online about how the system handles families with intellectual disabilities. Many began questioning whether removing Ray, Lorraine, and Timmy was truly the right move. Wouldn't it have been better to give them support in their home rather than tearing them apart? One user wrote. Others, however, defended the county's actions. Love isn't always enough. If there was abuse, intentional or not, someone had to step in. Once again, the Whittakers found themselves in the middle of a digital storm. Only this time, it was fueled by sympathy instead of mockery. Betty's silence. After the letter went viral, Betty herself didn't speak publicly again. Patrick said she'd seen the reaction online, but chose to stay quiet. She reads the comments sometimes, but it hurts her. Some of y'all don't understand. She's not internet savvy. She don't know what trending means. She just wanted to be heard. He said she cried when she saw how many people said they missed her family, but she also worried it wouldn't matter. She said, "All this talking don't bring them home." That line, too, became a rallying cry for fans. Hashtag Bring Them Home began trending on social media platforms. The investigation crosses paths. Then came the twist. Just as Betty's letter began gaining sympathy, the West Virginia State Police investigation into alleged fraud tied to the Whittakers was announced. The timing couldn't have been worse. Now, instead of purely emotional conversations about family, the public was faced with legal allegations involving two men, Eric Carroll and Patrick Rohr, the same Patrick who had been helping Betty. Immediately, the comments turned suspicious again. So Patrick's making emotional videos while being investigated? That's convenient. Is the letter real, or is this all part of a cover-up? It didn't matter that Betty herself wasn't named in the investigation. Her credibility was being tested again. The letter that had brought her sympathy now brought scrutiny. Mark Lyda's reaction. In a rare public statement, documentary filmmaker Mark Lyda, the man who first introduced the Whittakers to the world, was asked if he'd seen the letter. He simply said, "I saw it. It's beautiful and it's sad. I don't know if Betty wrote it word for word, but it sounds like her heart. I hope she finds peace." His words reignited debate. Some accused him of exploiting the family in the first place. Others said he was one of the only people who ever treated them with compassion. The truth? It was complicated, just like everything about the Whittakers. The letter reaches the county. By the third week after its release, officials in Raleigh County reportedly had a copy of Betty's letter in their possession. According to local sources, a social worker had printed it out and attached it to her case file. Whether or not it made any difference is unclear, but one thing was certain: Betty's words were being heard by the very people she wrote about. And that terrified her. Patrick later said she was afraid they'd twist her letter into something negative, that they'd say she was unstable, manipulative, or trying to guilt-trip officials. She told me, "They'll just say I'm crazy again." Still, the damage, or maybe the impact, was done. The world had read Betty's heart. And once you've seen pain that raw, you can't unsee it. A message that stuck. In the end, whether people believed her or not, the letter became symbolic, not just for the Whittakers, but for anyone who's ever felt unheard. "Don't take my people," she'd written. "Don't take the ones I love and tell me it's for their own good." Those words have now been quoted, stitched into videos, printed on shirts, and shared by strangers across social media. They're more than a plea. They're a challenge. A reminder that even those we don't understand still deserve compassion, connection, and dignity. How did Betty's letter make you feel? Did it change the way you see her or the family? Comment below with your honest thoughts, because sometimes empathy starts with listening. The internet can build you up in a day and destroy you in the next. For Betty Whittaker, her letter had done both. What began as an outpouring of sympathy quickly turned into a storm of accusations, drama, and digital warfare. By the end of the second week, the letter that made people cry had become ammunition in a bitter fight between content creators, fans, and critics, each side claiming to defend the truth about the Whittaker family. The division begins. At first, things seemed hopeful. Betty's letter brought empathy and humanity back to a story that had become dark and confusing. People were saying her name again, not as a villain, but as a grieving sister and caregiver. But then, other creators began to weigh in. Brian, one of the YouTubers who had previously interviewed members of the family, posted a long response video. He praised Betty's letter as emotional, but also hinted that there was more to the story. "You have to ask yourself why this letter came out now," Brian said. "After everything that's happened with Patrick, with Eric, and with the money, this feels like an attempt to shift the narrative. I'm not saying Betty didn't write it. I'm saying timing matters." That single statement lit a match. Fans who had rallied behind Betty turned against Brian overnight. His comment sections filled with anger and disbelief. "You talk like you care, but you're the one exploiting them. Let that woman speak her heart without turning it into content. She lost her family, Brian. Show some compassion." But Brian didn't back down. In a follow-up live stream, he claimed he had voice recordings from sources close to Betty, people who allegedly said the letter was influenced by Patrick. "I've heard from folks who were there," he said. "Patrick wrote most of it. Betty said some words, but the message was polished. It was meant to make her look better." Patrick fires back. It didn't take long for Patrick to respond. Within 24 hours, he posted a video titled "Stop Lying About Betty's Letter." His voice trembled as he spoke. "You think I made it up? You think I sat down and wrote something just to make her look good? You're wrong, man. You weren't there when she cried over every line. You weren't there when she said she missed her family. You weren't there when she told me she'd give up everything just to see them one more time." He paused, visibly shaking his head. "You call it fake. I call it love." Fans flooded his video with thousands of supportive comments. Some even began attacking Brian directly online, accusing him of spreading lies for views. The tension grew, and it wasn't just between creators anymore. Viewers began splitting into factions: Team Betty versus Team Brian. What had started as a heartfelt plea had now turned into a digital civil war. The hate floods in. Betty herself had no control over any of it. Patrick said she was aware of the fighting online, but that she avoided watching most of it. She don't understand why people are fighting over her letter, he explained. She just wanted to talk to her family. Now she's scared they'll never see it because of all this noise. But the noise kept growing. Troll accounts started posting edited versions of her letter with fake sentences inserted, lines suggesting things Betty never said. Some claimed she confessed to abuse. Others made her sound angry and vengeful. The false version spread faster than the real one. On Facebook, a post claiming Betty admits to hitting Lorraine in leaked letter gained thousands of shares before it was debunked. That headline hurt more than anything else. The accusation that Betty had physically harmed her sister had already haunted her reputation. Now, people were using her own words, or versions of them, to reopen old wounds. The return of the county. Just as the internet chaos reached its peak, reports emerged that county officials had once again visited Betty's home. Patrick confirmed it in a short clip. Yeah, they came by. They asked questions about the letter. They said they'd seen it online and wanted to know who helped her write it. He sighed deeply. It's like she can't win. Every time she speaks, they turn it into another investigation. According to Patrick, Betty told them everything. That she'd written the letter because she missed her siblings, that she didn't mean to stir up controversy, that she wasn't trying to manipulate anyone. They didn't believe her, Patrick said quietly. They never do. Whether that visit was routine or something more serious, no one knows for sure. But fans began to worry that the renewed scrutiny could jeopardize any chance Betty had of seeing her family again. The public turns ugly. It's a sad reality of the internet. When tragedy meets attention, cruelty often follows. Videos began circulating with titles like Betty's Manipulation Exposed and The Truth About the Letter Fraud. Creators who had once supported the family now began using their pain for clicks. They replayed her words, slowed down her voice, and dissected every phrase like detectives trying to solve a crime. In one live stream, a former volunteer even mocked Betty's emotional tone. She's playing the victim again, he laughed. If she really cared, she'd clean up that house and stop blaming everyone else. The laughter cut deep. Fans pushed back in the comments, calling out the cruelty, but the damage was done. The empathy that had briefly surrounded Betty's story began to curdle into skepticism. Supporters hold the line. Despite the negativity, Betty's loyal supporters refused to give up on her. They began organizing online vigils, digital porch nights, where people would light candles and post photos with captions like, "We hear you, Betty. Home isn't the same without family. Love louder than the hate." Some even started mailing physical letters to her local post office, addressed simply to Betty Whittaker, Odd, West Virginia. Patrick later showed a stack of envelopes in one of his videos. "She can't believe people care this much," he said. "She just keeps saying, 'I thought the world forgot about us.'" For all the chaos online, those letters brought her something real: connection. Creators at war. Behind the scenes, the creator community covering the Whittakers became more divided than ever. Some stopped making videos entirely, saying the situation had crossed a moral line. Others doubled down, claiming the truth still hadn't come out. Eric, who had largely stayed silent after his own fallout with the family, released a short statement on social media. "This is all sad," he wrote. "I hope Betty finds peace. But y'all need to remember that not everything on the internet is real. Be careful what stories you believe." That message reignited old grudges. Patrick responded immediately in a now-deleted post. Eric talking about truth? He's the last one who should say anything about honesty. The feud between the men who once claimed to care for the same family was fully back on display. And once again, the Whittakers were caught in the middle. Betty withdraws. By the end of the month, Betty stopped leaving her porch. Patrick said she barely spoke, spending most of her time staring at the empty chairs where her siblings once sat. She told me, "They turned my letter into a weapon." He said she still believes someone, maybe Lorraine, maybe one of the social workers, might see it and understand. But her hope was fading. She's starting to think they ain't never coming home. For a woman who had spent her entire life fighting to keep her family together, that realization was crushing. A question left hanging. In the midst of all the noise, one question lingered like a ghost over every video, every comment, every article. Did Betty write the letter as a genuine plea, or as a last attempt to repair her image? No one could agree. But maybe that wasn't the point, because whether she wrote it from guilt, love, or desperation, the pain was still real. The loneliness was real. The longing was real. And no amount of internet debate could erase that. How do you feel after seeing how quickly love turned into chaos? Was Betty heard, or was her message drowned by the noise of the internet? Comment below and share what you think. By the time autumn arrived in West Virginia, the world had moved on to other headlines. New scandals, new viral stories, new distractions. But for Betty Whittaker, time stood still. The porch was still her world, her place of waiting. The letter that once made her voice echo across the internet had become a memory, and yet it still lingered, floating around in posts and videos that refused to fade away. Silence where noise once was. The chaos had quieted, but not in the way Betty hoped. No reunion, no news, no new letters from the county, just silence. Patrick came by less often now. He said it was because the cameras did enough damage, and maybe he was right. The last few times he filmed, Betty didn't want to talk. She'd just shake her head and say, "Ain't nothing left to say." Her words have been twisted, her pain turned into content, and her sincerity into a debate topic. But even through all that, she still asked the same question every morning when she woke up. Have you heard anything? No one had. The internet had done what it always does, burn bright, then move on. But for the people inside the story, the consequences stay behind. The letter lives on. Months later, someone uploaded Betty's handwritten letter in full, framed against the background of a soft Appalachian hymn. The video quietly climbed to over 1 million views. There was no commentary, no editing, just her words on screen and the sound of wind. People rediscovered the emotion of it, the raw, trembling lines, the messy handwriting, the way her words stumbled but still carried weight. You don't know how hard it is to wake up every day and remember they ain't here. It hit differently now. There are no fights, no debates, no new updates. Just a stillness. And in that stillness, her letter became something else. Not an argument, not a headline, but a piece of humanity preserved in the noise of the internet. For many, that video was their first time seeing the Whittakers without commentary or judgment. Just a family's pain written out in a trembling hand. Patrick's final words. Patrick eventually made one last video before deleting his channel entirely. He looked tired, older somehow. The porch behind him looked the same. Worn wood, peeling paint, empty chairs. "I did what I could," he said quietly. "I helped her write that letter because she needed to say it. But the truth is no letter, no camera, no YouTube money's going to fix what happened here. Some things you just can't undo." He didn't cry, but his voice cracked when he said her name. Betty's still here, but she's not the same. When you lose everything, you start living in memories. That's all she's got left. He folded the printed copy of the letter in his hand, then looked straight into the camera. "If y'all really cared, don't forget her. Don't forget them." It was the last time anyone heard from him online. The county's quiet response. Sometime after, a small local paper in Beckley published a single-paragraph update buried beneath the classifieds. Officials confirm that the Whittaker case remains open. Family members are currently residing in care facilities under state supervision. No additional details will be released at this time. That was it. No mention of Betty, no mention of visits, no promise of reunification. Just bureaucracy's cold stamp on a warm human story. For Betty, it was like a second loss, this time without any noise to go with it. The porch today. Neighbors say she still sits outside every evening before sunset. The dogs still bark when cars drive by, and every once in a while, she waves, even if there's no one there. There's a chair beside her with a folded blanket and a Bible resting on top. That's where Lorraine used to sit. Sometimes, Betty hums to herself, little bits of old hymns, songs her mama used to sing. The porch light is still on every night. Always the same bulb, faintly glowing through the dust. She once said, it's so they can find their way back if they ever come home. Maybe it's superstition. Maybe it's hope. But either way, she keeps it burning. How the world remembered her. After the letter, people began writing songs, poems, and short films inspired by Betty's words. A small YouTube artist even turned her letter into a spoken-word piece titled Bring Them Home. One verse went, they called us strange. They called us lost. But no one called us family. Now my home is empty air, and I'm still setting plates for ghosts. It wasn't about fame anymore. It was about memory. The story that once symbolized shock and poverty had transformed into something tender, tragic, and deeply human. Even those who once criticized Betty softened their tone over time. They began to realize that whether her letter was written from guilt or love didn't matter. What mattered was that she tried to speak, and in her own way, she spoke for everyone who'd ever been left behind. A legacy of unheard voices. In the end, Betty's letter became more than just a message to her missing family. It became a lesson about what happens when the world turns real people into entertainment. Every line she wrote was a reminder that stories don't end when the cameras stop. People still hurt. They still wait. They still hope. Don't take my people, she'd said. Don't tell me it's for their own good. That plea still echoes, not just from the porch and odd, but from every family caught in systems they don't understand, every person who's been spoken about instead of spoken to. Echoes in the dark. If you drive past the Whittaker home now, it looks the same from the outside. The same slope of the roof, the same wooden steps, the same dog lying near the gate. But those who stop and listen say you can still feel something in the air. Not fame, not controversy, just the lingering sound of a woman who refused to stop loving her family, even when the world turned her pain into content. This porch don't feel right without y'all, she'd written. I still leave the light on, and she still does. Every night. Do you believe Betty's story deserved to end this way? Did her letter make you see her differently? As a woman, not just a headline? Share your thoughts in the comments and let your heart speak. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.